Where's he gone?
The president first left Florida and went to, the first time we saw him make any kind of an extended statement on this, he was at an air base in Louisiana. We were then told he was going to another undisclosed location. And just in the last hour or so, we found out that he's outside Omaha at another air base, Offutt Air Base, the headquarters of the Strategic Air Command. And he is there until late this evening, when we're told he is coming back to the White House.
Well, now, the president and the leaders of Congress were removed to so-called secure locations, I suppose, in the event that they had to conduct government business in some safer place than Washington.
Right, right.
Do we assume that the fact that they're bringing him back to Washington means that people feel that it's all right to be here now?
That's hard to say. They may not have felt comfortable bringing him back here right away when this was unfolding so rapidly today. But I think they may also feel the need to have him back in Washington and to get ready to make some sort of a statement to the American people, though we don't know when that could happen. Vice President Cheney and Condoleezza Rice, his national security advisor, have been at the White House, two of the few people in the White House since this morning. And he has been in contact with them, but again, he will be joining them at the White House tonight.
And we are expecting perhaps a statement from the president. We've just seen sort of fragmentary remarks from him so far, but some sort of major statement?
We will hear something from him, but we can't say at this point when it will be, and it could be late this evening before he actually gets back. So I think while everybody is waiting to hear something from him, we don't know when yet.
Thanks very much, Don.
Thank you.
NPR's White House correspondent Don Gagné.
Americans historically have felt insulated from acts of terrorism such as we experienced today. The attacks on the World Trade Center building in New York and the Pentagon in Washington are distinguishable not only for their size but also for the apparent planning and resources that made them possible. Alan Brinkley is a professor of history at Columbia University in New York. He says today's events will force the country to view its relationship with the rest of the world differently, even as we make efforts to find those responsible for the attacks.
I think what makes this so extraordinary is the enormous scale of what happened today and the obvious massive conspiracy that was behind it, the large-scale coordination. I mean, so many things happened that are so difficult to do today that it really does make one feel that there's a much larger force at work in this event than was at work in the Oklahoma City bombing or the first World Trade Center bombing or any of the other, sort of scattered terrorist events we've had in the United States.
You have to ask yourself, if somebody was able actually to successfully hijack, more or less successfully hijack 4 aircraft, commercial airliners, today in the morning, why couldn't they have done it 2 months ago?
Clearly they have found some way around the security mechanisms we've developed. The airports from which these planes were hijacked are not low-security airports. So, I mean, I think that's what is going to take some time to sink in our national psyche is the magnitude of this event and the total secrecy within which it had been shrouded.
There have been comparisons made and will continue to be made with Pearl Harbor almost 60 years ago. 2,000 people died, and America begins an involvement in a world war. Is it a fair comparison today?
Well, it's a fair comparison and an unfair comparison. I mean, this is not an act of war in any conventional sense. I don't think anybody imagines that there will be an invasion of the United States or that large-scale military activity will, at least immediately, follow this. One of the central characteristics of our culture throughout our history has been our sense of being protected by the two oceans, that we're somehow separated from the rest of the world and safer, in a way, than the rest of the world. But I think what this does is demonstrate the falsity of that assumption. We are not protected from the rest of the world. We're part of the world, and that a terrorist event of this scale, which has never happened in any part of the world, to my knowledge, nothing of this magnitude has happened in any other nation, has happened here. It's going to be a very hard thing, I think, for Americans to assimilate.
Professor Brinkley, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Alan Brinkley is a professor of American history at Columbia University in New York. Earlier today, we spoke with John Axisa, who was on his way to work when the first plane hit the World Trade Center.
It was such a surreal thing. I think I commented out loud to the people around me, it looked like the end of the world. And each time I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. The next thing I saw were people jumping from the building. And I will never see anything so horrible in my life. These people just choosing their way of death as opposed to succumbing to flames and smoke, I guess.
What kind of view did you have of them, and how did you know for sure they were jumping?
I was across the street. These were people, I could see their clothes. I saw a gentleman in a red shirt, and his arms weren't waving or nothing. He just calmly jumped. And 7 in all, I believe. I didn't see them all. I turned my head in horror, but each time someone else would jump, the whole crowd would break into hysterics. And then the second building went up. I heard no aircraft. I was right across the street. I was still refusing to believe it was an aircraft at that point, but the explosion was deafening. I felt the impact on the back of my head as I turned to run, and I literally thought my shirt caught fire from the heat. It felt like the flames touched me. I know they didn't. I know how ridiculous that is, but it was just that hot. It was that insane. The wind, the debris, people were falling to the ground, and I wanted to stop and help them, but self-preservation told me just keep going. The building was going to fall, which eventually it did do, but by that point I was 4 or 5 blocks away.
Mr. Axis, thank you for talking with us.
Sure.
Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
John Axis speaking with us from New York earlier today.
Here's a review of today's story about the biggest terrorist attack ever. Both World Trade Center towers collapsed this morning after 2 hijacked commercial airliners crashed into the skyscrapers. Fire sparked by the collapse continued to burn. The U.S. military headquarters was also attacked. One side of the Pentagon collapsed under another commercial jetliner. A fourth